Welcome to Axpona 2015 Reviewer's View. I'm here with
Myles Astor once again.
David Robinson.
Myles and David are with Positive Feedback magazine. David is the founder of Positive Feedback, and Myles is their senior editor, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I kind of wear two hats. I work for you and for David.
There you go. So we're here to give you a show wrap-up. What sounded good, what sounded promising, and if it didn't really make it, well, maybe we won't talk about that. What do you say?
That sounds good.
It's a deal.
It's a deal. David, lead off. What really stood out to show for you?
There were several rooms and several approaches that really cranked the clock for me. One was I really enjoyed the NBL room where they were playing open reel tape the entire time. That was terrific. Tubes in one room, solid state the other. I've known Jeremy, Brian, and Greg for a long time, and they've done a really good job of getting the most out of open reel tape. So that was one thing that I loved. I was there after hours last night, drinking wine and enjoying tape way too much.
Well, what happens in the NBL room and in this show, the Gelita room, which was one room over from the NBL room, also with the United Home Audio tape deck, is that beginning in the evening they have after-hour tape parties. And every year they fill the room, there's people in there, it's like you're in church, except I tell you what, when Jeremy's behind the controls, it sure doesn't sound like you're in church.
That's for sure.
How about you, Myles? What stood out?
Well, I think, I had a lot of, I think the show had issues a little bit with the rooms and the bass. So again, you had to apply that room filter to the brain. But I mean, probably, I think most people would say either the two rooms up on the 12th floor, either the Magico room or the Audio Research Sonus Faber would be kind of the standout shows, show rooms. Again, you couldn't judge them on day one. It was more or less Sunday, even today, going into the M project room, the M series project room. You had, adjustments had been made, and they finally said, "Oh, well, by the way, the cartridge was brand new." Those are the rooms that kind of stood out for me. I mean, I know they were kind of like megabuck systems. I really did kind of search high and low because I really do like to find something a little less expensive out there. But I was kind of hard pressed at the show to really come up with something in.
Yeah, well, Myles sent me a text and he said, I can't find any good sound at this show. And I thought to myself, well, you have to listen through these rooms. Right. These are hotel rooms. These systems are dropped in the hotel room the day before the show starts. They really don't have any chance to get any bugs out of the room, to make any major adjustments or add custom room treatment. So I really have to hand it to the exhibitors for what they're working with is really a one-day setup.
Right.
Yep.
But I will add to David's comment, I heard the NBL room and it was kind of ho-hum, and I went back and I was at the same party David was last night, and I was thinking to myself, this room doesn't sound the same.
No, it doesn't.
And so I saw Greg today, or Jeremy, and I said, you guys did something. Was it just like no one was using the electricity and it sounded better because the bass was missing during the day, and this is like, oh, something got unplugged on the synergistic cables, blah, 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 and we found it and we changed it. So.
Well, I was told the inner story on this one, and you know what they did, David? They took these little HFTs, which we did a video of about a year and a half ago, and you walk into the room and there was this big hole or something in the middle of the NBL room, and they could walk and they heard this and it was like a node anomaly. And so one of the guys, he took an HFT and he put it right up. There was a loudspeaker mounted in the ceiling, and if you look up today, when you looked up, there was this little HFT, and apparently that had a lot to do with some of the magic last night.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I think that when I think about some of the other rooms, there were several rooms that were using DSD that were getting some great results. I like the precocity room was doing well.
Yeah, I thought so too. Yeah.
And I got to be in there when Jared Sachs was there from Channel Classics, and he was playing a recording that hasn't even been released yet. And it was sounding fantastic. But it was a great deal of fun to watch the producer get into his groove, listening to his own recording and realizing that DSD had some really good offerings at the show. I really enjoyed enjoyed it quite a lot. I went up to the Magico room several times myself, and I'm still ambivalent about it for some reason. I'm not sure if things were coming together for me or not there. But that's why various people go to the shows. Different strokes for different folks, and you connect with what you connect with. I did like the fact that there were some great turntables on play. I mean, turntable technology is hitting such a, no pun intended, but such a great groove now. I think the greatest turntables, the greatest tone arms, the greatest cartridges, and the greatest reissues. I mean, I talked one room into going out and picking up the Dean Martin, the brand new Dean Martin Dream with Dean that Chad just released. They had already sold out of the Ellington masterpieces. Extraordinary. I mean, he's released 2 issues here just recently, Chad has, that went to the top of my best 10 jazz releases of all time. They're being released now.
Yeah, how cool is that? I mean, today the turntables. I mean, Myles just finished a review of the VPI Classic Direct. I'm getting the keyless turntable from Germany after the Munich Hi-Fi show, and if you've been watching the Facebook, if you've been listening to a little bit of buzz on the internet, this is a super cost-no-object turntable, and it's coming out today. This is 2015. People are investing in this technology, and the reissues, David, you're right, you're absolutely correct, because I tried to get that Ellington album myself, and it was sold out. So,
do you know that Chad, I talked to Chad about this, he has sold out 4 pressings now. He sold 4,000 copies.
You can thank Mikey for that, right?
Oh,
yeah. Well,
there were several of us who wrote about it. There were
Mike,
several of us who wrote about it.
It's Mikey and it's David and it's the internet buzz. I mean, let's not discount the buzz on the internet. When you read a post on one forum and it's cross-posted on another forum, and then all of a sudden people go, hey, they tell their buddies about it and through an email, and and all isn't just through one source of media anymore. We all share it. David has a lot of writers, so your media presence has a very wide footprint in the marketplace. So when Myles says something, somebody else hears it on the other side of the world. How cool is that?
Well, I think software is kind of, equipment aside at the show this year, to me, kind of the message really was the software. I stood up in front of the tape seminar today, and I said the one take home was 3 years ago I was here, and we talked about how when you release a medium that the hardware always outstrips the supply of software. Right. And 3 years later, we started with 5 when I started the tape 3 years ago. 3 years later, we now have 18 companies releasing 15 IPS reel-to-reel.
Is it 18?
18 companies.
Wow.
And then you look at now, I was up in the Exosound room, because we're looking at this project I'm doing for positive feedback about, trying to get, downloading, computer files and all this stuff out of the realm of being tweaked them, and what's the average person going to do? And you now look at Exosound sponsoring Yarlow and Quad DSD that's downloadable. This company's now doing Quad that's downloadable. David sent me some files to listen to. So I mean, you look at it and we're really in almost another golden age of software.
Well, something that's really amazing is that there's a convergence that's happening between open reel tapes and DSD, where the one is actually supporting the other one now. And so we have companies like Opus 3, for example, where Zoner is doing such a great job issuing his 15-inch tapes. But what he's finding is that he can pay a lot of bills by releasing high-resolution DSD files, which he loves the sound of. And that allows him to have the luxury to issue these tapes that we love. I mean, they're great. I agree with Myles 100%. I'll never lose my reel-to-reel Jones.
Really? No stuff. How cool is that?
It's really cool.
Well, then let's segue into, what's your A list of rooms that you heard here at the show? David, start.
Well, it's a tough question. I did like the MDL rooms. Myles and I may not agree on this one, but I enjoyed the GTTO room very much myself.
Yeah, I did too. Yeah.
I thought that that new Carmel 2 speaker by day 2 was really hitting its stride. And the combination of that and AudioNet, well, if you read my reviews, I mean, I think AudioNet's killer. was my big find of 2014. And I haven't had experience with the turntable in there, Myles. I don't know that one nearly as well.
The Kronos?
The
Yeah, the
Kronos.
Kronos.
Sure, you have the Kronos.
Yeah, I have the Kronos, and I've had the Kronos in the system for 4 months now, and it's taken my level of musical involvement up to another level.
Yeah.
It's a different sound that I'm accustomed to with the turntable.
Right.
It's more master tape like, but it's also got its own kind of effervescence that
Right.
makes it unique.
Well, and the synergy is really definite in that room, because those elation cables. I mean, I've really pushed deeply into exploring the elations, and they're amazing cables. So I thought that was a great room. I liked Andres Koch's room over at Playback Designs. I thought they were getting some good stuff until their server failed this morning.
Well, yeah, that's the thing about a show. Everybody's relying upon servers, and they're using the Wi-Fi to talk from their phone device over to their system. And when that fails, well, you're SO.
As a matter of fact, I saw at least 3 rooms.
I was going to say, I might be overestimating, but I would say 70% of the rooms had some sort of digital issue where they had to reboot. I mean, it was like the turntables were playing.
That's
Let me
right.
put the turntable on while I try to figure out what's wrong with the digital.
That's right.
Well, I don't have a problem with that. If you want to put a turntable.
Oh, that's right. I mean,
It's when they put a Red Book CD on that I got a problem. And I don't think I'm going to sit and wait now. But the fact is that there were too many failures.
Yeah.
I saw too many rooms
Exactly.
that were down.
And it wasn't just me. I mean, I had a lot of people come up and say the same thing to me.
No, and then the other thing is when we come in as reviewers, we'd like to have some gauge, some bogey, some reference points. We bring our own music. And, we can't even do that now because even if you bring a thumb drive, I brought a thumb drive and handed it over. They go, well, I'm not sure. I've got to get it around the machine. I've got this. I can't get it in. Hey, here, I'll show you my playlist. And I'm going through the playlist. Well, there's none of my reference tracks on the playlist. So,
Right.
yeah.
Well, I get around it. I carry my Aston Current AK-240 right with me. So.
You're packing.
I got the heat. And it's great. I plugged it into several systems because I also have a cable that takes it from 3.5 millimeter stereo to RCA.
While we're talking about digital, let's talk about something, because I know Dave is probably more up on it than I am, but I don't know about you guys. I went into the Techniques room, and Techniques made an appearance. They're actually high-end. The story was very interesting, because I guess there's a number of things where the person who's now the CEO of Techniques is a woman, which in Japan is almost unheard of.
Yeah.
Number 2, she's a jazz musician. Number 3, everything has to go past her in terms of sound for approval. And they were showing a new server which was not using USB, but Cat 5, I think they were using.
Wow.
And I think I've heard a couple of people now talking about USB is going to go the way of the dinosaur. So David, I thought, might have a little more insight on that.
Yeah, what do you have to say there?
Yeah, this is really interesting because at the show Newport Beach, in the positive feedback hospitality room, we're actually going to have Dominic Ruhlart of Emerging Technologies there, and he's bringing in. We're going to have the first Western Hemisphere premiere of the new NADAC 8-channel quad DSD. It does everything, but it goes all the way up to quad DSD. No USB port on it at all.
Wow.
What we're going to see is they have developed a protocol, TCP/IP protocol for audio over Ethernet.
Let's just say USB is not fast enough to do what they need to be doing now.
Yeah, well, USB has a number of limitations. It has distance limitations, attenuation, it has noise problems that can come up. What you can do if you shift Ethernet, Ravenna over Ethernet, is you can be running cables and connections hundreds of feet. You can be cascading dozens of devices. You can control entire systems, a whole building of audio AD and DA devices at whatever type you want to go with, DSD, DXD, or PCM.
How about that?
And so what you end up with is you end up with a complete solution that goes way out down the road. It also has a much better timing control, and of course for audio and for audio video work, this is critical. So we're going to see Ethernet. As a matter of fact, Joe Cavallo of Cavallo Salzman has promised to bring me some of his Primo Ethernet cables.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
That'll be at the show as well. So yeah, it's coming.
That's good. That's good. Well, I was going to ask Myles for his A-list, but I'm not sure there's one coming. Do you have an A-list
Well,
there?
I mean, again, just take the square root of everything. One room that impressed me, and I have to say, I was never a huge Krell fan over the years, but I think I commented on one of the past shows with the Sonyas and how the D'Agostino amp sounded really good, and they had it set up here with the Alexias, and the bass was boomy in the room. That wasn't the amp's fault. That wasn't the speaker's fault. Dan's amp sounded really, really good on the Alexias, There was really great presence to things and dynamics and resolution. I mean, it was just totally un-Krell-like for Dan. It was, really nice. Next door they had the Sabrina, which everybody, there was huge crowds to get into those two rooms. Everyone wanted to hear the Sabrina. Fortunately, that was hampered by the bass, but, Nick's preamp, I think, was really interesting. We'll be getting it for review, which has this differential balance input, which really, promises to drop the noise floor of phono even further. Anyone, all three of us are, diehard analog people. We know that that's probably been the area in terms of analog where the biggest change is like the noise floor keeps dropping and dropping, and the more you drop it, the more information it's coming through, and the more it sounds like the green tape. And we were talking today, and I'm going, with my best cartridge, like an Atlas in the system now on the VPI. In some ways, tables are coming frighteningly close to the tape. It still doesn't quite have the ease, but in terms of dynamics, analog has dynamics we never dreamed of.
I agree. I totally agree with that.
Yeah. Well, another room that I saw that I don't know what your take is on that, guys, but the title room impressed me. This is apparently their premiere show.
Yeah, I have my A-list here and my cheat sheet, and that's right on my list. That was a great room.
Great room. I really liked what I was hearing there. And another product that I finally got to hear after Brian Mora, also positive feedback, was beating me up about it, was the Lampizator.
Yeah.
I finally got to hear this radical design out of Poland, which is essentially deals with DSD by putting it through analog filters and tubes directly at heated triodes, and that's it. There's no DAC.
Yeah, it's one of the hottest products in the marketplace now. It's the Lampy 7.
Well, the 7, and there's a golden.
Yeah, golden.
Is there a golden edition?
Yeah,
Golden Gate,
which is the super. And I talked about it, I think, at one show. I think it was last year's Axpona, where the sound in the. Who were they showing with the speaker company? Vapor Audio. So the Vapor Audio and Lampizator room really shocked me, and I heard it. They had the big trade shows, was it, this year?
Yeah.
It was hard for me to tell because it was all electronic music. I wasn't familiar with it, but I will say that it certainly impressed me.
Well, that was one of the rooms that had a server that was misbehaving. It was really funny because I finally got to meet Lukasz, who's the design genius behind Lampizator, and he said, "Oh, you've got to be able to hear the DSD." And I said, "Okay." They logged their servers down. He ran up to his room, brought his Mac down, and plugged it in directly.
Yeah.
So we listened to some double DSD directly off of his Mac, and that sounded really choice. That was really delicious. I've been promised a Golden Gate right me from Newport.
Oh, no stuff. Well, aren't you the lucky dog? Can I touch you?
Yeah, you may touch me. You may come to my listening room.
I can fly up.
Yeah. I think that we're seeing innovation. That's a radically different approach.
Absolutely, it's very, very different. Very different approach. I was thinking of the rooms that stood out for me, and if Myles' list is that big, my list is that big. So I'm going to just read them off to you guys.
I'm a funny daddy.
I know. I'm going to put it at one of the tops of my list. I really like it, Maybe because I live with the Sonyas and the Anats, so it's like like your parents, You kind of get to know them a little bit. But I'll tell you, the Carmel 2s and the GTT room.
I couldn't agree more.
I'll tell you, that was
excellent.
That floated my boat. The acoustic Zen room with the Triode Corp amps. I've really become a fanboy of that product. and that sound, it's a very mid-rangey, realistic sound. It doesn't sound like electronic music. It doesn't electronica. It doesn't sound digital, even when they play digital files. Really like that room. The Rido D3 stood out to me on like yesterday. They were putting that in and out of the system with a.
I could never catch it in the system.
I tried. I was supposed to go back today, or I'm sorry, yesterday afternoon.
Today.
And they kept switching back and forth. They said, "Don't worry, Peter. At 4 o'clock, we're going to have the D3s in." And then I went back at 4:15. "Oh, I'm sorry, Peter. Of course they have to cater to the customer, and the customer wants to hear a certain thing."
Sure.
And then my big surprise at a show, and I wasn't sure I was going to, ever say this, was the Emerald Physics Room. And those are the speakers that we shot video last year after Rocky Mountain over at their factory, and they sounded too good for the money. They had a PS Audio, the new Bascom King designed amplifier. That was the first time it had been shown in public, and the system totaled at $15,000. And the model number of the Emerald Physics is the one above what you saw in the smaller room at Rocky Mountain. And I'll tell you, that was a real punchy, big, real sound. I could put that in my summer home. I mean, you're talking, if you don't do the PS Audio amplifier, you're talking $10,000. And that, I mean, you're talking a whole system. You're not just talking a pair of interconnects. So that was.
I actually had one other.
Oh, go ahead.
Again, excluding the bass, I actually like the Martin Logan Nihilist. I thought they were really quick, they were really nimble, really resolving with the Macintosh gear. Last year I didn't care for them.
Yeah, me too.
This year I thought they sounded, I would love to have them in my room.
Yep.
I was looking at one more that I had here. I was double checking my notes. It can be kind of hard.
Well, Dave is looking. I've got one I'll throw out there.
Toss it.
Yeah, the Care Audio. Now, acoustics. It's got Alnick amplifiers. It's got the Sanya little low frequency thing that augments the low frequency drivers. I've heard those Mosaic speakers, and they've always been a little thin and not really involving, not my cup of tea. But when you add bass support to it, it really kind of opened the whole thing up. I would have liked to have heard it in a bigger room. I would have liked to have them spread a little bit more apart. But that was a real surprise for me, because here's something that's kind of very much off the beaten path, and it could play with the big boys, I thought.
Well, I got to give a shout out to my man Dan Wright and Mod Wright.
Oh, me too, man. Let me tell you.
Mod Wright and the Daedalus and that whole package just makes music year in and year out.
Yep.
Every time I go into Dan's room, it's fantastic experience, because he's mellow and his stuff makes music, and you don't sit there going, I got to get out of this room. You end up saying, I got to sit down. For my Audio Oasis Award, the decider for me is always, when I go into a room, am I pulled in or am I being driven out? Some rooms are so bad, I don't even go in the door. You stick your head towards the door,
that's
and
right.
you walk away.
You have a little meter on. It's inside of yourself, and it's like it's the hallway meter. And you lean in, and you go, that's not going to work for me.
Well, it's the old keep walking meter. Keep walking, because not everything is worth your time. We only have so much time. That's something that some of your viewers may not understand. But when you go to an audio show and you got dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of rooms, you have to sooner or later reach a point of cutting your losses.
That's
well,
right.
unless you happen to be like Stereophile or Task, where
you
you signed writers cover this
that's
area.
right.
That area. That's the only way you can. Really
That's the only way you can really do it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to throw out another one. I'm going to throw out the Polymer Room with the N-Klein and the Thrax. That really floated my boat. A very natural sound. It's very relaxed and musical, but very, very involving. And they came on the scene exactly a year ago for me here at this show.
Yeah, they were by the Martin Logan room last year.
That's right. And I'll add another one to it, and I'm actually back at the Listening Studio 1 reviewing the Audio Note Level 5 system, which is, folks, it's just insanity, that system. Well, they had one that was 1/12 the price of the system I'm reviewing, and it was 95% of the involvement. It really was working well.
I stopped by that room, the Audio Note UK. They were just playing some CDs, but I have to admit, I reviewed Audio Note back in the early 90s, back with the old original Ngaku. And when I sat in the room and listened, I've got them on the list of rooms that I may give an Audio Oasis Award to.
Oh, there you go.
And that's off of Red Book. which for me was, that's, but I'm used to their approach. I mean, there's something seductive and alluring about what AudioNet does.
Well, they do. They use the corners of the room to augment the bass. They take a small, it's derived from the Snell B loudspeaker from 25, 30 years ago, and they're only that big, and they're only that wide and that deep. And you put them back near the corners of your room, so you don't have to have it out in the middle of the room. You don't have to have the man cave thing. So the family can still play and enjoy themselves, and you can go back and you can listen to some great tunes. I see Myles is looking at his watch, and he's got to catch an airplane.
I was also thinking, giving a shout out, because I really wanted to say one thing, which is the organizers at the show couldn't have done a better job. I mean, the exhibitors were happy, the attendees were happy, but to me, there were a couple of things that really stood out about the show. Number one was the organizers' attention to detail. I mean, there were little flyers in the lobby in the morning, like, these are all the new products that are on display at the show, go see them. This is what's going on today, go see it. People got emails, this is what's going on today. And number two was their music. I mean, they had Patricia Barber on Friday night, it was wonderful.
Right, yeah, live performance.
They had blues on Saturday night. If you wanted to eat lunch, they sold sandwiches, they had people performing. You could go hear music at lunchtime. I mean, these guys really, and Liz, who organized all the seminars, she did
was
a
fantastic.
wonderful job. She kept everything moving, nobody ran over. It was just such a well-oiled show, and you just don't see that.
Yeah, I thought Liz and Mark did a fantastic job.
Yeah, I did too. The show is organized by JD Events. It's a Connecticut company, and it's they teamed up this year with Comic Con, and the man who runs Comic Con. Do you remember his name? I did write it down. And he's partnered up to the show. He runs the biggest comic book show in the Boston area, from my understanding.
Yeah,
so the whole thing was.
I know they're running a drone show next.
Well, that's the thing. We should cover
and that's
the show.
Huge, by the way, dude.
I know.
It's probably next to the rodeo in Las Vegas.
That's it. But we ought to cover the show with drones. We could just program the drones from our listening rooms back home and say, "Here comes."
Wipe out that CSCD.
That's right.
Somehow this is not reassuring. It really was a great event. This is my first Axpona. I had been to the Chicago show before. Mark gave me a personal invitation at the LOC Gala back last December, and it sounded good, so I decided to give it a shot, and it's turned out well. Of course, Weston is a fantastic hotel.
Here are the numbers that I got from Steve Davis, one of the co-organizers, that they pre-sold a little bit over 3,000 tickets. I don't know what the final total was. They expected about 700 walk-ins each day. They had a third more, and it depends, I'm not sure whether they're calculating it by rooms or by exhibitors, but there's a third more exhibitors at the show. They're almost totally sold out of the meeting rooms, and they're really pushing the limits of the Westin right now. The show is growing, and they are eventually hoping that, let's say they have 5,000 or so this year, they're eventually going to grow this into being like 10,000 people coming to the show, and they're really they're on their way.
Yeah, I agree. And the halls on Saturday, it was really tight.
Couldn't get in anywhere.
You couldn't get in any of the rooms.
Even today, Sunday, in the morning.
In the morning, there was a lot of.
And Friday, they started early on Friday, which is the first. Like I've been asking, like Rocky Mountain, at least if you're going to start at noon, at least extend it to 8 at night. Here they started at 10 and went to 6, so there was a couple extra hours for people to go to the show, which is wonderful.
Well, all in all, it was a great show, and we thank you for watching. Myles said to me earlier before we started this, he goes, I don't know if I can do what we always do. We always say, well, what product would you take home? So Myles actually does have a product he would take home, and I'm putting Dave on the spot. So Myles, you lead off. What would you take home when you are going to take it home?
Yeah, but it was kind of prearranged. But you'll see it soon. The new Doshi 3.0 phono stage, just because I just love the ability, the loading, I love the design. So that's sort of what I'll be, and I'll have some cartridges and to play with it. Right now it's crazy in my systems. It comes with 72 dB a gain. I have 25 dB a gain in the gap, so I have like 97 dB a gain, and it's quiet, and it's absurd. I was driving the Ikeda .15 with no problem.
Well, I'll let Dave think, and I'll let Dave finish up on it. But I think if I sit here and I kind of go through my memory bank of what I saw at the show and what I'd like to take home, and this is kind of a selfish thing. I've been going into smaller format speakers this year. I've moved away from the big MBL 101E. I've moved into the Perfect 8 as a new reference, and I'm very curious about speakers such as the size of the Carmel, or example, the Rido D3. And the Rido D3, it was, some people said, "Oh, I really like that room," and other people said, "Well, maybe it was a song that was being played." So, how about you, David? Anything you take home?
Boy, that's definitely.
Yeah, or anything you would like to add to your reviewer list right now that you kind of saw?
This a definite list, almost by
But you
category.
need something else like a hole in the head.
But you asked.
That's right. You did ask. Yeah.
Let's see. On the digital side of things, that lampizator, the Golden Gate.
There you go, the Golden Gate.
Yeah, that's going to be something.
And you're getting it though, so you get what you wish for.
Exactly. I on the turntables, I really like the Kronos. It was sounding very nice with the PC-1 Supreme.
Well, let me say this. Walker Audio, watch out.
You got NVS in there though too, right?
Yeah, yes, and two.
Yeah.
And we're going to be getting in. We will be getting in the Kronos. It's coming in.
Excellent.
After we're going to have 3 reference turntables in the room.
How cool is that?
Very. We're the Bricasti M1 DAC impresses me, and golly, well, of course, Andreas's IPS 3, the integrated all-in-one preamp plus amp plus DAC is extraordinary product. I mean, he was struggling with his server, unfortunately, but I did get a chance to hear it on Saturday, and it was sounding good. So any of those things would be terrific. Of course, complete MBL systems are really nice too. Are you listening, Jeremy?
Well, you just had it.
Oh yeah, I just had it.
What do you mean?
Where's the nudge button?
David just reviewed it. Last year. He wasn't back again. Doesn't that tell you something?
Hey, I kissed a girl once. That doesn't mean I would like to kiss her again. These things happen.
Let's leave on that high note. This was a great show this year. Again, hats out, shout out, props to the organizers. Just super show. Peter Breuninger reporting for AV Showrooms.
Myles Astor signing off.
David Robinson doing the same.
We'll see everybody at the next show. We are going to be covering Munich. We are going to be covering THE show in Irvine, California at the new Irvine Hotel coming up at the end of May, beginning of June. So we'll see you there, or be square.
Take care.
Okay, take care.